You're listening to Neurodivergent Mates. All right, welcome. How is everyone today? Welcome to another episode of Neurodivergent Mates. I'm your host, Will Wheeler, and today I'm joined with my special guest, Kerry, Milne, to talk about becoming an AuDHD marketing expert. Kerry, what's going on, my friend?
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
No problem. Sorry, did I see that you were a little bit nervous to meet me and stuff? I thought I
Um,
saw on like your LinkedIn, you're like, I'm a little bit nervous to meet him.
yeah, because I've done a few podcasts, but none quite as kind of serious and well, I say serious in that you're really good at this. And so, yeah, I was like, oh my God. But no, I think probably less nervous because at least if I go off on some tangent, you'll be like, oh, yeah, that's expected.
Yeah, totally. Don't be nervous or anything, honestly. And I think like for those of you who don't know, we actually sort of get onto the podcast 15 minutes before it actually starts. So it actually is a really good way to just speak to the people, calm their nerves, all of that. By the time we're ready to sort of get in, it's like we've been talking for like forever type of
Yeah,
thing, if that makes sense.
it's a good way to do it for sure.
Yeah, totally. But look, what we'll do before we do get started, I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping, all of that. So if this is your first time listening to us, please subscribe, like, and follow to all of our social media pages. You can check us out on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And please, wherever you check out any of your podcasts, please, we on any platform, please subscribe, follow us, do whatever you need to do to help us with the algorithm to get us out there and so forth. Now, please check out the work we're doing with Neurodiversity Academy. You can check us out at neurodiversityacademy.com. Got heaps of really cool stuff on there coming up. Got some really cool articles, some blogs that are coming out. What else we got? So many things I just keep losing track of, but there will be a lot more stuff coming out shortly. So please check out that stuff there. Now, look, tonight or today or whatever, well, it's still sort of today in wherever you are over in WA, isn't it,
It is
Kerry?
a little bit, yeah, 4:30. So
Yeah. And for our American listeners, right? Because we do have people from all over the world listening, right?
cool.
So or even people from the UK, Australia has like 3 time zones. Just to get a little bit of an idea of how big Australia is,
Yep.
so it's still like four. And it was funny when I first reached out to Kerry. I said to her, I said, "Look, do you want to do this a little bit later? Because I know I'll only be 4:30 in the afternoon, correct?"
Yeah, that's it. But as we're saying before, this is a great time for me because I'm like having my second kind of energy burst. So
Yeah,
perfect.
totally. Awesome. But look, before we do move on, just a little bit of a warning. We like to do this, and we may not have any real hard hitting stuff in the interview today, but better to be prepared. So, a little bit of a warning. Some discussions may be triggering. If you need help, please reach out to a loved one or call emergency services. We are not doctors. This is a space for sharing experiences and strategies. Now, for anyone who might be listening to us live at the moment, please feel free to shoot through any questions or even just interact with us as much as you'd like. So just put it into the comments on whatever platform you're watching us on at the moment. And if it's a good question, we'll put it up on the site. If it's I know, a bit of a shit question, we'll probably not put it up, yeah? But we should be able to go with that there.
Good
So
questions only.
yeah, totally. So, Kerry, so you ready to rock and roll, my friend?
Let's do it.
You're born ready, right? All right. Okay, cool. Let's start with the beginning. So, can you tell us a bit? Sorry. Can you tell us about your career journey and how Gap came to be? So, Gap is your business, am I correct?
That's it. Yeah. So Gap is my business that I started about 7 years ago. How that came to be is a very it was a total mistake. If I think back to school, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up because I just was so stressed about actually, getting past the graduation of school. I think the most visual memory I have of what I wanted to be when I grew up was John Farnham's backup singer. I was 100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had those moves, man. Like
Good old Johnny Farnham.
yeah. But apart from that, I just knew that I wasn't very smart. Well, at least that's what I thought. So the only things that I ever really aspired to be were things that I had seen people in my life, like teachers or, pilots or whatever. And there was kind of no real drive to do anything in particular, although I knew that I needed to be successful. So
What
figured that
was
one out.
what was school like for you, out of curiosity?
Awful. It was a complete, I have no nice memories of school because I knew from a very young age that I was I was dumb. I couldn't read properly. I couldn't remember things that we learnt in class. I was extremely compliant. And so I wasn't loud so much as naughty, but I would participate in, discussions and whatnot and be quite, mine was the report card that said, Kerry is a fantastic student to have in class, but she needs to try harder for tests and exams. Well, I was never going to be able to pass a test or an exam, but my undiagnosed ADHD and autism and dyslexia was, completely a mystery at that stage. And in the 80s and 90s, girls didn't get ADHD rarely. And by didn't get it means we certainly didn't get
like identified as being that.
No. I think I got diagnosed as dyslexic in year 9, which over here is, I would have been 13. And the kind of, yes, she's got severe dyslexia, which even that we didn't really know what it meant. But it was sort of, you need to study harder. And so my mum would get the report card that says Kerry just needs to apply herself more. And my poor mum.
Mine said the exact same thing. Mum would be like, well, you need to apply yourself more.
No, mum knew because mum had got me a maths tutor. She'd got me an English tutor. She knew that on weekends I would study. I would do my assignments and all that sort of thing. Like, I was such a good kid because I didn't want to let anybody down, the people pleaser. But then when she'd get this report card, she's just like, something's wrong. And to answer your question, the really long way around, that was just a massive driver of anxiety for me. I had severe anxiety from probably the age of 9 or 10. And I just spent my entire time at school thinking, why can't I be like everybody else? Why am I so
Why
dumb?
can't I just get this? Why do I, I remember I used to like hit my head like, why can't you get this? Because I don't know about you, but I would have to stay in at lunchtime and just sit there looking at a piece of paper thinking I have no idea what this means.
Mine would start from the moment, or it'd start on a Sunday night. I would just get like all kinds of anxious. And then every morning from when we would leave home to when mum would drop us at the bus stop, which was like, 8 minutes or something drive, I would just be crying every single morning. And I think I say to my mum frequently, you poor thing. I knew that you had to then go and work, you know, and like you're dropping this kid off that's been crying. And she said, oh, it was heartbreaking. And she said, but what was worse was when you thought that you were trying to hide, when you got a bit older, you thought that you were trying to hide the fact that you were crying because you didn't want to upset me. And I was like, oh, I remember that. So yeah, I like school was hard. And then the fact that I think I was good at sport though, which I think I've heard you talk about how, you know, sport was a thing for you, and thank goodness.
Totally.
Yeah, I didn't, as I got older, I didn't have to worry about who was I going to eat my lunch with. Did I have to eat lunch in the toilets? Because I could go and find some, like there would be something on at lunchtime that was sport related. And then I found myself coaching younger kids. So coaching younger kids in netball or basketball or volleyball, swimming, whatever it might be. And I think that is where I started to enjoy school more, because there was something that was giving me a bit of
can I bit of drive and all of that. Can I just say that this is a big thing that I sort of picked up with sport when I was younger. Now, I used to play volleyball not long ago. I just can't find a good volleyball place to play down here in Sydney, but that's a whole nother story. But the thing that I found, especially with sport when I was like a teen, or, you know, in primary school and a teenager, all of that, was it was sort of weird because in school, like when I mean in school, like maths and English and subjects like that, I was really struggling. I felt really, really dumb, all of those types of things. But then when I'd get onto the sports field, I was unstoppable and I didn't feel dumb then. Do you know what I mean? And in my head, I would often think to myself, I don't know, it was a weird feeling because I'm like, I don't feel dumb. Especially when I would be like scoring like heaps of points or hitting home runs or whatever that was, and like running rings around other people. And it was a weird feeling because it's like you're made to feel dumb, but here it's like I'm not, it's like I'm the smart person in the classroom.
Well, you were. 100% makes sense. And I think, you know, when you and I have chatted before, it's like, I became a coach of younger kids, and then I was fairly good at sort of netball and volleyball, and that meant that I went on to, you know, represent the state, and you know, on my weekend club, I was a captain. And so there's these sort of leadership threads that were coming through that I'd never really realized until later in life. And so when you say you felt like you were unbeatable or you felt like you were the smart one, you were, because you were connecting dots that the people that were sitting next to you in maths, who were literally probably connecting dots, but you know, formulas and stuff or whatever, English, they couldn't do what you could do. And that is because, you know, you would have had like that hyper sensitivity around anticipating, you know, what sport were you playing?
Oh, gee, AFL. I would play baseball. You know,
Like I'm not very tall, but I had this reputation for being a very, very good defender. And I now know that that's because I could like micro body language. I could read when someone was about to like throw the netball in a particular way, and I'd intercept it. Fascinating, like on reflection. But yeah, so I ended up going through getting the lowest score of anybody in my year in Western Australia to get into university.
How'd that make you feel?
I just was relieved. Actually, I had nothing other than being relieved.
That you got the lowest score?
That I got in.
Oh, that you got even with a... Oh, okay. Because
the lowest score to get into university.
I thought you meant because I got the lowest OP you can get.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. I mean,
25. So like that was, and then the weirdest thing was I didn't tell anyone, but everyone knew. I was like, how the hell does everyone know I've got the lowest score? You know what I
oh,
mean? So that was a hard thing to take as well.
that's tough.
Yeah,
How did
yeah,
they
yeah.
know?
I have no idea. I don't know if certain people in the school let people
Right.
know and then it's gotten out, and I have no
Yeah,
idea. But
that's
that knocked me for a
nasty.
long time. That knocked me
That's
for a long time.
nasty.
Yeah. But you know
I
what? You know what's funny? I actually found my certificate, and it says OP25 00000 for all of my like classes, all of that.
Wow.
And I think once like the business takes off and all of that, I'm gonna get that framed and put on the wall. Do you know what I mean?
It's the best feeling. I
It
I
is
came
pretty
across
cool.
mine last year, my high school reports, and there was
Mm,
this one teacher in particular that just had like was not interested in
mm,
me. I think in her mind I was a bad reflection of her.
mm,
Like everybody else in it was chemistry and physics as well, I think. I don't even know
mm,
how I got into the class, but she would have my mum on the phone or down at the school like once every couple of weeks, just saying Kerry needs to study, like she needs to keep up.
mm,
And mum would be, she's got a tutor. I know that she's doing the work. And
mm.
this teacher just had no interest, no empathy, no level of kind of, is there a different way that we could, do this? But that was the entire school system, and I think to a degree probably is still.
Yeah,
Here's the box, and if you don't fit into it neatly, we'll just shove you in there, and you can figure it out while you're there.
I think as well that like from what I've picked up or what I picked up after school that there was some good teachers where I went, right? But the ones who I had problems with, they just didn't want to deal, they just wanted to deal with the easy kids, right? I was more work for them, right? So
Oh,
rather than, so it was more work for them. So they're like, oh, bloody, this is a pain in the ass, and that's what I noticed a lot of the time. But the teachers who took the extra time with me and helped me to grow and develop, it probably was easier for them in the long run because once they got me to a certain point, I was probably a really good student,
yeah.
and that's what people don't realize.
Yeah, and I think I've got nephews and friends with kids that are school age and whatnot, and there's a definite sort of scale on
Mm,
uh, a the level of understanding that teachers have, and b the level of understanding that schools have, and therefore what their approach to different kinds of learning and kids in their class.
mhm.
Yeah, there was none of that in my day, but it was a very, very long time ago. i
Yeah,
am
totally. When
i
I
am
think back, that's
hopeful.
like 25, 26 years
Let
ago or
me
so.
just say it out loud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, totally, totally. For me, anyway.
No,
But
for me
like,
it's longer.
oh shit. Okay, fair enough. But hey, let's move on. So some really awesome stuff there. But what was it like? And I better click onto the thing here. So what was
Yeah.
it like receiving a late diagnosis for ADHD and ASD? How did that change how you saw your past experience? Now, I know for myself, I was diagnosed with ADHD only, gee, I think 5 years ago now. Or dyslexia was like the big thing back in like when I was a kid. But yeah,
Yeah.
had no idea until like 5 years ago. What was that like for you?
Um, it was firstly it was this massive revelation, and like someone had handed me the manual that I'd never been given for my life, and I'd actually just been trying to use the manual that every neurotypical had been handed, and I
Mm,
couldn't work out why it wasn't working because I was trying so damn hard all the time.
mm,
So from that perspective, it was so liberating in a way, because I was just like, oh my god, it's not me. I'm not dumb.
mm,
I'm not
mm,
hard work. I'm not all of the things, insert kind of like naughty person, annoying person here. So I think I'm only on I think this is the third year, and I'm going to be 50 in a couple of months. So I was 46 and a
happy
bit.
birthday.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Are you having a big party?
I'm not going to have a big party, but I'm going to go.
Come to Sydney.
Run away from a big party. I'm going to Singapore. I'm going to go to
Singapore. Oh, yeah, that'd be all right.
Yeah, I'm going to do the Grand Prix over there.
Wow, that would be unreal. I would love to go. It's like at night, but it is pretty humid over there. Who do you go for in the F1?
I'm massive Oscar and Lando.
They're doing well, aren't they?
You can't get past Max. He's just such a unique fella. I love it. And I find myself looking at these guys thinking, yeah, you're definitely like, you've got some neurodivergence in you for sure. Like just, that whole like super hyper focus.
Do you want to know? I don't know if it's true or not, but like with Lando Norris, like I'm connected with his father on LinkedIn, and his father is dyslexic.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if Lando is, so that's, but I know from talking with his father, I know he's dyslexic. So, and he's quite open with that. So there could be a possibility. Yeah, I look at some of those guys because they're like, I wasn't a good student at school. And I'm like, oh, yeah, interesting. So you went into race car driving.
Yeah, you went really hyper focused on something that you were passionate about.
Totally. Oh, that should be pretty awesome.
The other thing that happened when I was diagnosed was I'm quite ashamed, I think, to say that I really didn't have a level of awareness or understanding about ADHD before I was diagnosed. Only that I knew that it was I knew that it was a challenging thing to have as kids. And my cousins, cousins, but they were all boys that had it. And so it was just like naughty boys. I had no concept of things like rejection sensitivity dysphoria, time blindness. I never knew that was a thing. All of these things like that drive a level of anxiety, like executive function, impulsivity. Like I had no concept of any of that. So when I started to learn about it, it was all of these, oh my God, moments. Oh, is that why? And so there's a level of sadness, I think, as well, like grief that came with the realization that I had spent most of my life just trying to fit in and be compliant and successful, and never really felt like myself, like never really knew who I was, because I always felt like I was trying to I'd marked someone as being a role model who I needed to be like, and it's like, be like that person. And so enter the world of masking and mirroring, where we're really good at, there's that meme that says, oh my God, I feel like I've known you forever. It's like, yes, that's because I'm completely mirroring and like masking and mirroring your personality. And so
do you know what I sort of found, like, when I look back before I was diagnosed, is that I would put myself in certain situations where it wasn't really good for me. So let's say all my friends were going out to a nightclub or a pub or whatever like that. I'd get there and I'd be like, oh my God, like sensory overload. I need to start drinking just to try and calm down, right? And then I'd be like blackout drunk, like, everywhere. And I used to think, why do I get like this? No one else does, Now I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, I was using that as a coping mechanism to deal with that type of stuff. But now, if someone goes, hey, Will, do you want to go into this noisy pub or what? I'm like, take me the fuck away from there. You know what I mean?
but like, I think that's the liberating part. And I was having this actual exact conversation with somebody yesterday about, someone said, oh, you would have taken drugs when you were, in your 20s and 30s. And I was like, yeah, like everybody did.
And they're like,
And,
well, hang on, not oh, well, because I thought everyone did the same. Yeah, true.
well, but the point was, I said, oh, but like I had been drinking since I was a teenager. And exactly what you were saying was that I knew that if I was going to a place where there were going to be a load of people, the only way that I could, A, feel like I wanted to be there, and B, not get completely overwhelmed by all of the things, was to start drinking like 2 hours beforehand. So I was
Totally
already, right?
drunk by the time you got in there. And then you're
Yeah,
like, and it was almost like, all right, this is going to help me to be able to interact with people and things like that. I'm not going to be able to do it otherwise.
exactly. And now if someone says, like, I talk about it online a lot, but it's the whole sort of, yeah, come to a networking event with us. It's like, absolutely not. I would rather stick a pin in my eye. Thank you. Because by the time I've walked in, I can hear the lights buzzing. I can smell the carpet that's just been cleaned. I can like hear 45 individual conversations. I can hear like someone rustling a plastic bag that's like getting cups out of, like, it's like, no, I will
That's
go out for
interesting.
a coffee with you though.
That's interesting. That is interesting because for me, I love networking events, but I do like to have like not get wasted at a networking event because it's not really doesn't
Yeah.
look really good, but having a few drinks just to calm the nerves a little bit because and plus I don't like going to a networking event if I don't know certain people there. Because at least
Yeah.
if I know certain people, I can be like, oh, hey, there's Kerry. Hey, what's going
Yeah.
on? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, what's going on? Hey, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And then build off from there type of
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, that's interesting from your perspective because you've got like different sensories that
Yeah,
are
and I
interesting
can't
there.
concentrate. Like, I actually really do love getting to know people, and I love hearing people's story. But in that kind of environment, I can't concentrate. So I
I do
miss.
know what you mean about like hearing all the different conversations, and it's like you have to go, "What'd you say, man? Hey,
Right.
what? You know what I mean?" But yeah,
Mm.
now that's interesting. That's interesting. Hey, so out of curiosity, so oh, hang on, what do we? Hang on, what do we have? Okay, so moving on from that one, how is being neurodivergent shaped the way you approach strategy, creativity, and marketing?
Well, I think if you'd have asked me this question without the neurodivergent piece a few years ago, like, why am I so good at it? I would purely have thought that it was because I was so I'm always really well prepared. Like, I will always do the research. I'll always, look for the threads and their insight. I'll go into the data. And so all of that is true, but the neurodivergent aspect of that is what makes me able to do that, which is, pattern recognition, hyper focus. The idea that, like, I used to think that the word creativity meant like artistic, like drawing. But this concept that creativity is actually just about problem solving in a way that is different, like
Totally.
it's a
Yeah,
new way of
totally.
solving the problem, right?
Mm.
And the reason I can do that is because I have this amazing ability to see parts of a problem that are connected in some way that no one else would really make sense of. And from that, it's definitely, it gives me an edge because I can do it really quickly. If someone comes to me and says, oh, we need to send some emails, we're like low on leads, try saying that fast, low on leads.
Low on leads.
um, And I'd go, I'm okay, cool. What ask a few clarifying questions. Like what are you saying in your sales, and what have you got out in the market already? And what becomes very apparent is they don't need marketing or email to start with. They need to clarify what it is that they're like, what problem they're solving. So
Mm,
I think the neurodivergent aspects of what I do is just it allows me to remember what I've seen before and apply it to different businesses and different scenarios. And it also allows me to be super, super empathetic which is what marketing needs to be, right? You need to be thinking about solving a problem in the shoes of your audience. And so nothing says empathy like a neurodivergent empath. So we're
yeah.
very good at like identifying exactly what is the insight here. And then how can you put that into some kind of strategy that says you will are uniquely qualified or uniquely positioned to solve a problem for that client.
Mm, mm. Yeah,
And
no, awesome.
the sales aspect, I think, I nearly failed school, but then I realized I was really good at selling when I started to sell shoes. And it's like, how did I know how to do that? Because I was reading, again, I was like reading people, listening to what they were saying. Oh, I really like chalk heels with a, leather upper and a whatever for winter. And I realized that if I could give them 3 versions of something that met their criteria, they would feel so like they just feel so validated and like valued,
Mm.
and often by 2 pairs instead of 1. And that was just the best thing ever.
I think that's so interesting because, like, you and I think it's not my perception, but you often hear what people's perception of, say, an autistic person is, right?
Yep.
And putting them into a situation where they have to sell shoes that can't be done, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so. You couldn't what's the word I'm looking for? You can't judge a book by its cover,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
Type if I'm pretty sure that was what I'm looking for because,
Yeah,
like,
it is. Yeah.
everyone has their every neurodivergent person brings their own unique strengths, um, and weaknesses, of course, but, it's interesting how it all can flow into each other. Now, a
Yeah.
reason why I share that, I was speaking to a mother of a neurodivergent child, a few months ago now, and she's talking about how his son will never get a proper job. He'll never be out. He'll ever do is just pack boxes in a warehouse. All of this, and I'm thinking, geez, man, this kid hasn't got it. His mum's not really behind him. But then she's
Gee.
talking about how he's brilliant at what do you call it? Debating, brilliant at debating. He's like head of the debating club and all of this. I'm like, what? That is like an incredible skill to have.
Negotiation.
Totally, totally. That could make you millions of dollars. And like this is the thing, I think, like,
Yeah.
why aren't people looking at, I think what's happening, especially if we're going back to school and thinking about stuff like that, people are looking at what we're getting on paper rather than looking at the life skills and going, damn, man, you should actually look at this. Have you thought about maybe doing this? Because this would flow in really well with your
Yeah.
debating stuff.
For sure. And I think it is I get really sort of frustrated when I hear conversations like that and that they're still happening to that degree today. And I know that they are, but I think you know, there's so many layers to that, and peel back the what the parents want the child to be, sort of thing, and
Mm.
that's a whole level of thinking and expertise I don't have, albeit I've got
Like,
lots of opinions. But
can yeah, can I say on that, right? It probably comes from the school itself, because when I
yeah,
was in school, right, my parents were told from the school, Will's never going to be able to do this. He's never going to be able to do that. Now, everything that I was told I'd never achieve, I'm probably achieving that plus more now. Do you
For
know
sure.
what I mean?
I know
So,
exactly what you mean.
and
Mum says that in year 12, I got glandular fever and I was off school for 10 weeks or something. I was really sick. And it was like the school were like, oh, this is maybe a good idea, a good opportunity to tell her mum that she needs to repeat. And mum said, you know, I knew what your thoughts on that would be, as in my thoughts. And she said, I just said to them, oh, I'll mention it to Kerry, and if she wants to do that, then. But I think she'll find a way to you know, catch up. But in a world where, you know, your parents really do rely on the school to be experts, how can we expect parents to not believe what the school is saying?
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're dead right. You're dead right. I think that that's what I've picked up, you know, from, you know, seeing what my experience was like and
Yeah.
then how I've turned out and everything. And it's sort of
Yeah.
like, and in a way, like that parent sharing that about her son, you know, she's not wrong, right? But like, well, she sort of is. But like, what I'm sort of getting at is that's what she's been told. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I know with
Yeah.
Neurodiversity Academy, this is why we're doing, and I'm doing a bit of a plug here,
Good.
our webinar events, all of that, to try and help parents to go, hey, this is what's happened to us. These are some other pathways you can take if you've got these issues happening and so forth there.
I'm glad you did the plug, because I was about to. Because the very first, I think the very first kind of fangirl message I sent to you was
Fangirl.
you know, a message that had maybe Alex from the ADHD chatty.
Oh, yeah. The guy from the UK, right?
Yes. And he was talking about he was actually talking about how neurodivergent kids in schools it's actually just trauma building. That's all that's happening, is we're just building trauma for kids, for all the reasons that you and I sit here today to say, oh, I was told I was dumb, I was never going to amount to anything. And, you know, our parents did the best that they could by sort of helping us maneuver through that. But the very first thing that I said to you ever, I think, was, I just wanted to say thank you for what you're working on, because you're changing the lives of kids who are going to find out that there's an alternative. Being smart, school smart, is not what defines your future. And
Well, you've got life smart and you've got school smart. I'd prefer to be life smart, if
for
that makes
sure.
sense. That's way more valuable.
For sure. And, you know, I look at people that I went to school with, and they didn't. I have absolutely, you know, no negative thoughts towards them themselves. But I just look at, you know, you were very much compared against the person that you sat next to, right? And I've gone on to do incredible things, different things. A lot of it because I was trying to prove, you know, that I was smart and I could be successful. But I've worked all around the world. I've built businesses. I've built brands. I've been part of global teams. I've done so many amazing things. It doesn't sound like someone who was dumb in high school.
And I think that might flow in well to the next question here, actually. Now, you've worked with some major players, so GE, Vodafone, and Pilco. How did those environments support or challenge your neurodivergent brain? So you've sort of shared a little bit, but how was that for you?
I think probably except for GE, yeah, I mean, maybe GE and Vodafone, but for a lot of that time, I really was just masking. I was trying to continually be sure that I wasn't going to get found out.
Mm,
Don't let
mm,
them find out that you're dumb.
mm, mm, mm,
But I was really good at what I did, right? So one of the reasons I was really good, and this is probably more relevant to your previous question, but my brain works almost in components. And so what that means is that I can build frameworks and like systems, and that's how I can see the dots that have been connected before, is because it's the pattern aspect of it. And so I became quite senior quite young because I was able to do things and learn things quickly. And then when I got into some of those big businesses that you've got there, the sort of what I was able to learn was unbelievable. It was on a global scale.
mm,
But I guess the trade-off from that was I was in offices.
mm.
I would be in early and leave late, because for the entire time that everybody else was in the office, like
Couldn't get nothing done.
I'd just feel
Yeah.
completely out of my body. Yeah.
Mm,
And I think meetings, I mean, I worked in banking for a really long time, and banking and insurance, never have there been more meetings in one industry than in those industries. Like, I'd go for weeks just having back to back to back to back meetings. And then I'd be completely overwhelmed and stay up till, 2 a.m. or whatever to get the work done that I should have been getting done when I was sitting at my desk
during
for an
the
hour at the end of
day.
the day. Yeah. So
Yeah, crazy, crazy. You said you were overseas for a while, yeah?
yeah, so I was in the UK, and then I've worked all over. I worked in Italy, in the UK, and I was in Melbourne for 6 years. So yeah, I have done the escape from Perth and back again. But yeah,
Nice.
I think what that allowed me to do, though, all of those things allowed me to do, was what I do now really, really well, because I can take the kind of principles that I learned around efficiency and productivity and marketing strategy and research and insights and that sort of thing, and apply them to either startup businesses or scaling businesses, but only in a way that translates for them, only in a way that's necessary for that particular phase of their business. So we're not putting in massive tech stacks or anything, but we might actually remove some waste by, putting in a better process for an inquiry, new sales inquiry, for example.
Mm, mm. Yeah, no, cool. Sounds like you're all over, and definitely heaps of awesome skills that you would have been able to build to be what you are now. But like you were talking about before, you talk openly about anxiety and academic setbacks. How have
Mm.
those experienced your oh, sorry, how have those experiences influenced your leadership style? Because I can tell you for myself, I'm very empathetic towards a lot of people now, because it's like, man, I can see this person struggling. Why are they struggling? What can I do to help? Rather than like, hey, pick your shit up, man. What the hell's going on? You know?
Yeah. Um, For sure. Like, I talk about anxiety and also sort of, anything related to neurodivergence, or anything that's, what do they call it? A comorbidity. So OCD or depression, whatever it might be. And I talk about it because I can now. I went for a very long time where I didn't feel like I could talk about it, because that would be a kink in my armor, right? That whole narrative that I had about being dumb. Imagine then if I started to talk about the fact that I struggled with anxiety or, anything else that, in my mind, that would have been like, oh yeah, they'd be like, I told you so. I knew there was something
Mm,
wrong with her.
mm, 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 mm. How
So
long did
which
it
is,
take you to? How long did it take you to be comfortable with being open out of curiosity?
I think I started talking about mental health when I left corporate. So
Mm,
that would be 7 years ago.
Mm-mm.
And the ADHD aspect, ADHD and autism, probably took me a year to talk. I didn't tell anybody for 6 months after I was diagnosed, because I never expected I was going to get diagnosed.
Mm-mm.
So I had like that kind of immediate shame, and then the immediate, like, the grief for that poor kid that was crying every day, on the way to school, like that poor child that thought she was dumb and was worried about people not liking her, and worried about letting her parents down, and worried. And actually there was nothing wrong with her. She was just different.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a huge level of, I think, yeah, like a sort of grieving process that I went through, and then anger. I think I always say I want all of my therapy money back. I want my divorce money back. I want my, I want my business relationships paid for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
All my
yeah.
money, because there was actually something here that no one suggested.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah.
But it's
Um,
it's actually interesting because like I think some people approach it a lot differently to others. Like when I got diagnosed with my ADHD, I was already in the neurodiversity space doing what I'm doing, right? So it was sort of like, yeah, all right, cool, another thing to tick off. But I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is that, and I even met a person who I'd been speaking to on social media for a while, and we met up for coffee the other day, and she's like, oh, I'm this and that. And, she just said she's not comfortable being open with it yet. And you know what? That's cool. I think everyone
Absolutely.
approaches things in their own way. And when they're comfortable to want to share it, maybe they never want to share it. That's cool as
Yeah.
well.
I
That's
do feel
fine.
like I have a responsibility to talk about it, and I think that there and every time I do share something that's, I don't know, quite personal, or
Mm,
whatever, or maybe even like just that little bit more tabooish
mm,
than the usual. Not the usual. I'm not being dismissive, but I think mental health, in terms of anxiety and depression, we're probably getting used to seeing a little bit of that now. But
mm,
when I posted about ADHD paralysis last week, I just, the whole concept that we want to do the task but we can't, like we're literally
mm,
paralyzed,
mm.
and that gets
We can
looked upon.
think about it in here. We're like, yeah, man, it
I
feels
want
good. I
I
really want to
really
do
want. I
it.
want to wash my hair. I know that I'll like it afterwards. I desperately want
Mm,
to wash it. Can I? No.
mm,
But I
mm,
had like 4 people message me after that saying, I can't tell you how much it means to me that you talk about the real stuff. It's not just the high level. It's
mm,
like what this
mm.
actually means. And so every time I do that and I get that feedback, it's probably, like you, but on a lower degree. But it's like, that you have to keep doing it. Like I have to keep talking about it, because there are so many people that are quiet and can't talk about it, not comfortable,
Well,
don't know how, whatever. Yeah.
the thing that I've shared this on the podcast before is that especially when when I first was like going out there and promoting neurodiversity, all of that type of stuff, neurodiversity was still only very, very like not spoken about. Like TikTok wasn't big. You didn't have like all of these like influences that we have now, all
Yeah.
of that type of stuff. So I'd be going in to uh, D&I events and being going, oh, I'm this and that, and the looks I'd get from people, it was like crushing, right? And like, I think the thing that really helped me was like, okay, well, I'm not actually doing this. And this is what sort of drove me to continually do what I'm doing. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for the people I'm representing. So,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? So that's where I'm like, I've got to be open about this. And I'm starting to see like, honestly like, the amount of change I've seen within this industry, I don't know if you call it an industry, but a community or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
right? In industries, you can probably say, um, it's skyrocketing compared to what
Yeah.
it used to be, which
And
is good.
like people laugh at the whole concept of TikTok, but I can tell you that I was in therapy for 30 years, easily 30
Mm,
years.
mm,
I have learnt more about I did all of the therapies. I did the
mm,
DBT, the CBT, the thing,
mm,
whatever. I did the
mm, mm,
schemas. I did them.
mm,
I learnt more about myself. I have learnt more about myself in 2.5 years on TikTok
mm,
than I did that entire time, because what I have come to understand is that I'm not weird. I am
mm.
weird, but I'm weird like a billion other people.
Weird in a
And
good way.
that validation is like, I don't have to try and fit in anymore. Like, and when the whole thing around oh, I'd wear a white jumper or a new shirt, a new clean shirt or whatever, and I'd always spill my black coffee on it, and I'd get completely mocked, in one of my old workplaces. They'd be like, "Oh, how long before she spills her coffee?" And I was like, "Ha ha." And then you come across the TikTok video, and it's like, "Yeah, we
Mm,
have spatial awareness issues.
mm,
We don't actually realize how far or close things are."
mm,
And
mm.
just even, and like, I haven't gone back and said, "Oh, by the way, that was my brain." But it's like, "Oh, that's pretty okay. Well, that's amazing that other
Makes
people do
sense.
that
Yeah.
all the time." Yeah. So,
Yeah, it
you
was
know,
actually interesting when I was growing up because, like, my brother's neurodivergent as well, but him and I were completely different. Like, I'm pretty sure he's like dyspraxic, and like he'd be all over the place and all of this. And I'd be like, ah, you idiot. And you know what I mean? Just
yeah,
as a kid.
wow.
But like, now I look at it, I'm like, ah, that's what that is. Or, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? I
right.
can notice because we're just completely different.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And even just like girls versus boys, the internalizing that girls would do to um that was completely struggling, but you didn't want to say, "Hey, I'm struggling," because you just had to be good, like just do the thing, like
Well,
just
it was.
just do it.
It, It's actually interesting when I speak to a lot of my female neurodivergent friends and talk to. It's really interesting that neurodivergent people were very open about anything. Like some of the conversations that if I was to have with like at
Oh,
a normal workplace or something, I'd probably be ousted, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Stuff like that. But it's been interesting when speaking to especially females on certain topics as well and going, oh, as a male, this is, and some of them have been like, oh, yeah, yeah, like this is how I feel. And that I'm like, oh my God, I would never have picked that, you know?
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
the
it is quite interesting. But I don't think of it as like weird. I think to myself, shit, I'm weird. But then I speak to these same people. I'm like, oh shit, we're just the same.
yeah, I'm having a phase of leaning into the whole weird thing. I don't
Mm.
know why. Maybe I've picked up on other people talking
Well,
about it
it's
or something,
normal,
but it's,
really.
yeah, it's just like, it's always been there. The classic for me in terms of what you were just talking about, is when people say, "Oh my God, you're such an extrovert, Kerry." Like or I would always get put into those when you do those tests at in corporate leadership things, and it'd be like, "Oh, you're an extrovert," and it's like, I couldn't be more of an introvert if
Mm,
you like, honestly, if you paid me $1,000,000, I couldn't be an extrovert. However, what I am
mm.
brilliant at is pretending that I am. And
Yeah.
that's a coping mechanism. It's a mirroring mechanism,
Mm,
and it's
mm,
the thing that makes you think that I'm an extrovert and that I really have got my shit together and I know what I'm talking about. And the the thing that I have that is not untrue is that I'm super direct, and that's the
mm, mm,
you're talking before about the sales and the autism thing. one of the reasons that people with autism do really, really well in sales is because they can't fake it.
Yeah, exactly. So the people who they're dealing with are probably like, oh man, this person's pretty open.
They can't lie. They can't sell something that they don't believe in. So
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting. It's so interesting. But look, we are getting close to the end, but I did want to go over this one here. What advice do you have for neurodivergent people or aspiring entrepreneurs who feel like they don't fit in the traditional mold? And that's pretty funny how we're just talking about that. It's flowing really well today. What's going on?
Good.
Yeah,
it
always flows really well. What am
I was about
saying?
to say, it's because it's you, right? Like you make people very comfortable.
It's a team effort.
Yeah. Look, this is, if I was going to go off on a tangent, this would definitely be one of them. The big piece of advice for young people is just realize that you don't have to be like somebody else. Like if you are struggling, you're not broken. You don't have a glitch in the system. You don't have a bug in your kind of, in your sort of DNA, but continue to be curious and just work out what it is that you love. Like I wouldn't have been able to tell you what I loved when I was 17, except for sport and probably drinking and dancing, right? But on reflection, what I probably realized that I loved was solving problems. I loved making things. I loved seeing someone's face when you give them a solution to a problem that they haven't been able to figure out themselves. So that's like, don't try and fit into the system or the mold, because the mold is bullshit. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Can I just say something on that? A big thing that I've found is definitely trying to find your is it your crowd? Is that the like trying to find your own
tribe?
Like
tribe.
Yeah. Because like the biggest thing I found was for a very long time, I used to wear suits, have a shaved head, clean shaven, all of that, and I was trying to be someone I wasn't. So I was attracting the wrong audience, and I was finding it really difficult to connect with these people. Like you were saying before, like being extroverted and people probably thinking, oh, this guy's really extroverted here. I just couldn't do it, right? And then over the pandemic, I was like, stuff this. I'm going to grow my hair out long because I like having longer hair. I want like, a bit of a beard. I just want to dress casually so I feel comfortable, all of that. And then that's when everything started to change, started to attract the right people. And that's where, like, especially Neurodiversity Academy really started to take off.
And I think that is the root core, that is the stem to happiness, right? And by that I mean what you've just described, that revelation, like realizing that you're not attracting the right people. It's always something that you only realize afterwards. And so when I say the thing, find you, like realize that you're not broken, or that you don't have to try and be like somebody that's sitting next to you, or that like is seen to be like a super legend. I think that you don't realize that until later. Like you can't actually say, oh, that's what she meant. But the whole just be yourself, it's the same thing. It's like, what the fuck does that, what does that mean, right? Like what the hell does be yourself? I don't know who I am. Like I'm trying to be like Johnny because Johnny seems to be getting like all the promotions. But the sooner you can sort of go, okay, well, I really like this. I really like the feeling of helping people, or I really like the feeling of building things, as opposed to trying to put like an actual title or a name on something. I think that is the thing that helps you get closer to understanding yourself, and therefore understanding the right people to be around, and letting go of all the people-pleasing bullshit and the fear of being a failure that just comes with having brains like we have.
Totally,
Right.
totally. Couldn't
Right over.
agree more there. Couldn't agree more. But look, we're pretty much at the end here. So finally, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Back yourself. Back yourself. Like every single time I've thought, oh, that almost seems like blah, or I wonder if that's, oh, no, it wouldn't be because how would I know? Some other hero has come through and said, oh, it's this. It's like, I knew it was that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just back yourself. And like, once you've figured out a way to back yourself, find a voice that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be a shouty, kind of fake extrovert one like mine. But borrow someone else's if you have to until you find your own, but back yourself, because we have this amazing ability to read situations, read people, connect dots, and it is a wonderful, wonderful thing from a business perspective, but also from just knowing how you want to, make your way through life. And it can be very, very powerful.
You legend. Kerry, thank you so much for coming on today. Did you enjoy yourself?
I loved it. I'm like, let's
Pretty
keep
cool,
going.
right? Yeah, we
Yeah.
could go, but I don't know how our guests would probably might need to go now, because sometimes we have people listening from overseas who are on the train to work and stuff like that.
Oh,
So they could be at work by now. But Carrie, look, thank you so much for coming on. If people
thank
want to
you.
connect with you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn, I'm there. You can't miss me. The annoying
LinkedIn.
post a couple of days. Yeah. Or Gap website. Yeah, I'm around. Kerry Milne.
Yeah.
You can
Cool,
find
cool.
me on wherever.
Wherever. Hang on, we've got someone I think has come through with a question before we leave. How does one find their identity so they can begin attracting the right people? I'd love to answer that, but we're actually a bit pushed for time. But Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing that. But maybe Kerry can go on
I'll
to
jump on
LinkedIn.
and yeah,
Yeah, go on to and answer that afterwards type of thing.
I
But look,
will.
Kerry, thank you so much for being on
Thank
today.
you,
It's
Will.
been a
Thanks for
pleasure.
having me.
No problem. You're a rock star, right? And look, for all of our listeners as well, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, like, and follow to all of our social media platforms. My name's Will Wheeler. This is Neurodivergent Mates. Till next time.